Picture a place where faith and knowledge converged amidst wild and mysterious landscapes, a site that endured invasions, wars, and the passage of centuries, harboring secrets that continue to puzzle historians to this day. This place is the Abbey of Clonmacnoise, one of medieval Ireland's greatest treasures. Founded in the 6th century by St. Ciarán, the Abbey of Clonmacnoise grew to become one of the most significant religious and cultural centres in medieval Europe. Nestled along the banks of the Shannon River in Ireland, it served as a gathering point for monks, scholars and pilgrims from across Europe. But what made this abbey so extraordinary? And why does it continue to captivate us even now? The story of Clonmacnoise begins at a time when Ireland was known as the Island of Saints and Scholars, a beacon of learning, while much of Europe was shrouded in the Dark Ages. Imagine standing at the edge of the Shannon River, watching as boats carrying pilgrims and traders arrived at this spiritual haven. The sound of bells echoing across the misty landscape, calling monks to prayer, while scribes worked tirelessly to preserve ancient knowledge within stone walls. Did you know that during Viking raids, the monks developed ingenious hidden chambers within the monastery walls to protect their most precious manuscripts? Some of these incredible works survived against all odds and give us a window into a world that would otherwise be lost to time. If you love history and want to unravel the mysteries of the great empires, like this video, subscribe to the Medieval Archives channel and don't miss a single episode. Join us on a journey through time as we explore the remarkable legacy of Clonmacnoise and discover how this sacred place shaped the course of European history for centuries to come. The story of Clonmacnoise Abbey begins with a remarkable young man named Ciarán, a monk whose dream was to create a sanctuary of peace and learning in the heart of Ireland. Born to a craftsman father and raised with both Christian teachings and ancient Irish wisdom, Ciarán showed exceptional spiritual devotion from an early age. After studying under the great Saint Finian at Clonard, Ciarán set out with just 8 companions to establish his own monastery in the year 544 after Christ. The location he chose was nothing short of inspired, a gentle rise beside the mighty Shannon River at a point where ancient east-west land routes crossed this important waterway. This strategic position would later allow Clonmacnoise to become a crossroads of commerce, communication, and cultural exchange. With his own hands, Ciarán drove the first post into the ground to mark the foundation of what would become one of Ireland's most revered monasteries. Legend tells us that he was assisted in this sacred task by Diarmait MacSabáil, a local king who would later become High King of Ireland, a partnership between church and state that foreshadowed Clonmacnoise's future importance. Tragically, Ciarán would never see his vision fully realized. Just 7 months after founding the monastery, at the tender age of 33, he fell victim to the Yellow Plague that swept through Ireland. On his deathbed, surrounded by his grieving disciples, Ciarán spoke words that would prove prophetic. "From this humble beginning, a great light shall shine across the land." Indeed, his vision endured far beyond his short life. The small wooden church he built would eventually be replaced by grand stone structures. The handful of monks who followed him would grow into a community of thousands. And most importantly, his dream of creating a center of spiritual devotion and intellectual pursuit would flourish beyond anything he might have imagined. Did you know that during one particularly brutal Viking raid in the 9th century, the quick-thinking monks of Clonmacnoise devised an ingenious plan to save their most precious treasures? As warning came of approaching longships, they hastily gathered their most valuable manuscripts, including illuminated gospels that had taken decades to create, and sealed them within underground tombs normally reserved for the monastery's most revered abbots. The Vikings, seeking gold and silver, never thought to look among the dead for the monastery's true treasures, the written knowledge that preserved centuries of wisdom. This clever strategy saved works that would otherwise have been lost forever. allowing us today to glimpse the brilliant artistry and scholarship of early medieval Ireland. In the centuries that followed Ciarán's death, Clonmacnoise grew from a small wooden monastery into a bustling religious city with its own cathedral, 7 churches, 2 round towers, and a thriving community of monks, artisans, and scholars. All this sprang from the vision of one young monk who never lived to see his 30th birthday, a powerful reminder that the seeds we plant in life may grow into mighty forests long after we are gone. Let me take you to Ireland during the 9th and 10th centuries, when Clonmacnoise reached its golden age. While much of Europe struggled through the Dark Ages, this abbey shone like a beacon of learning and spirituality across the land. During this remarkable period, Clonmacnoise was far more than just a religious centre. It had transformed into a bustling medieval city of faith and knowledge. At its peak, over 2,000 people lived and worked within and around its walls. Imagine walking through its grounds, hearing the constant murmur of prayers mixing with the scratching of quill pens on parchment, the tap of stonemasons' hammers, and the animated discussions of scholars debating ancient texts. The heart of Clonmacnoise was its extraordinary library, one of the largest in medieval Europe. While grand cathedrals like Canterbury and Notre Dame were still centuries from completion, the monks of Clonmacnoise had already amassed a collection of manuscripts that would make modern scholars weep with envy. The library contained precious works from across the Christian world, alongside carefully preserved texts from ancient Greece and Rome, knowledge that might otherwise have vanished forever. In the scriptorium, illuminated only by precious beeswax candles and narrow windows, scribes hunched over their writing desks from dawn until dusk. These dedicated monks worked tirelessly, their fingers stained with ink made from oak galls, their eyes straining in the dim light as they created masterpieces of calligraphy and illustration. Each manuscript could take years to complete, with every letter meticulously formed and embellished with intricate artwork, using pigments made from crushed gemstones, plants, and even insects. One of their greatest achievements was the Book of Clonmacnoise, a magnificent treasure of Irish literature containing chronicles, poetry, and sacred texts. The book featured spectacularly detailed illuminations with spiraling Celtic patterns that seemed to dance across the page, each one telling stories within stories for those who knew how to read them. Did you know that these medieval scribes often added personal notes in the margins of their manuscripts? After spending months copying difficult texts, they would sometimes scribble little complaints like, "The parchment is hairy," "It's cold in the scriptorium today," or my favorite, "Now I've written the whole thing. For Christ's sake, give me a drink." These humanizing touches remind us that behind these monumental works were real people with aching backs and tired eyes. Clonmacnoise wasn't just a center of learning. It was also one of the most important pilgrimage sites in all of Europe. Pilgrims traveled for weeks, sometimes months, along dangerous roads to reach this holy place. Some came seeking cures for illnesses, bringing offerings and sleeping near the tomb of St. Ciarán in hopes of miraculous healing. Others sought spiritual enlightenment or forgiveness for their sins. Many pilgrims carved crosses into the stones of the cathedral, marks you can still see today, nearly 1,000 years later. Even kings and queens made the journey to Clonmacnoise. They would approach barefoot as a sign of humility, regardless of weather or season, bringing lavish gifts to ensure divine favor. The monastery became so prestigious that many Irish kings chose to be buried there, believing that resting near the saints would improve their chances in the afterlife. The scholarly reputation of Clonmacnoise spread so far that students came from across Europe to study with its learned monks. Young scholars from as far away as France, Germany, and even Byzantium would make the perilous journey to Ireland, braving rough seas and the threat of Viking raiders, all for the chance to learn at this celebrated center of knowledge. In those wooden and stone buildings along the Shannon River, the monks of Clonmacnoise weren't just preserving the past, They were laying the foundations for Europe's intellectual rebirth, their careful work copying ancient texts, their original contributions to art, literature, and theology, and their dedication to education would echo through the centuries, influencing the Renaissance that was still hundreds of years in the future. But the story of Clonmacnoise wasn't always one of peaceful scholarship and spiritual devotion. The very same features that made the abbey thrive also made it vulnerable. Its strategic location at the crossroads of major waterways and land routes, along with its growing wealth and prestige, transformed this holy place into an irresistible target. Imagine the terror that must have gripped the community one fateful morning in 834, when the monks spotted the dreaded dragon-headed ships of Viking raiders approaching on the Shannon River. The monastery bells would ring out in desperate warning as monks scrambled to hide their most precious treasures, the illuminated manuscripts that had taken decades to create. The Vikings attacked Clonmacnoise at least 13 times over 2 centuries. These fearsome warriors from the north viewed monasteries not as sacred spaces, but as undefended treasuries ripe for plundering. They came with fire and sword, seeking gold, silver, and anything else of value they could carry away on their longships. One particularly devastating raid in 951 saw the Vikings set fire to the monastery's wooden structures, destroying many buildings and claiming countless lives. But the Norse weren't the only threat. After the Viking Age, the Normans brought a new wave of violence. These disciplined warriors, descendants of Vikings who had settled in France, came with sophisticated military tactics and an eye for strategic locations. In 1179, a Norman force led by Hugh de Lacy attacked Clonmacnoise, stripping the cathedral of its treasures and desecrating its sacred spaces. Perhaps most heartbreaking were the attacks from fellow Irishmen. As local kingdoms battled for supremacy, Irish warlords targeted Clonmacnoise both for its wealth and to strike blows against rival kingdoms that supported the monastery. The annals record that in 1205, the monastery was sacked by Conor Main O'Connor, son of the King of Connacht, a shocking betrayal from a man whose family had long been patrons of the abbey. One of the most disturbing accounts tells of soldiers stabling their horses in the cathedral and using priceless illuminated manuscripts for bedding in their camps. Imagine the horror of the monks watching as pages containing years of meticulous work were trampled under hooves or used to light cooking fires. And yet, through it all, the spirit of Clonmacnoise endured. After each attack, the monks would emerge from hiding, assess the damage, and begin again. Stone by stone, word by word, they rebuilt their broken walls and rewrote destroyed texts. When the raiders burned their wooden churches, they rebuilt with stone. When precious manuscripts were lost, they created new ones, often working from memory to preserve what had been destroyed. There's something profoundly moving about this stubborn persistence. In an age of violence, these men chose to devote their lives to preserving knowledge and faith. They could have abandoned the vulnerable site for somewhere more defensible, but instead they remained, maintaining the sacred flame of learning through centuries of turmoil. Speaking of protecting their treasures, did you know that the monks of Clonmacnoise developed ingenious methods to hide their most valuable manuscripts? They created secret chambers within the thick stone walls, concealed precious items beneath removable floor stones, and yes, sometimes even placed their most irreplaceable texts in the tombs of revered abbots. The raiders, though superstitious enough to fear disturbing the dead, never imagined that the greatest treasures weren't gold or silver chalices, but rather the knowledge preserved on those hidden pages. If you're enjoying this journey through the turbulent history of Clonmacnoise, please like this video, share it with fellow history enthusiasts, and subscribe to the Medieval Archives for more incredible stories from the past. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. What historical place would you like us to explore next? Perhaps another monastery that faced similar challenges, or maybe one of the Viking settlements that launched these devastating raids. Let us know your thoughts. Today, As you stand among the weathered stones of Clonmacnoise, you become part of a story that has unfolded across 15 centuries. These ancient ruins speak volumes even in their silence, bearing witness to an extraordinary past that continues to resonate in our present. The sight that greets modern visitors is a shadow of what once stood here, yet even these fragments are breathtaking. The landscape is dotted with the remains of 7 churches dating from the 10th to the 13th centuries. Each stone was carefully placed by hands, long turned to dust, yet their work endures, testament to their skill and devotion. Perhaps the most iconic features of Clonmacnoise are its 2 round towers that rise defiantly against the Irish sky. These remarkable structures served multiple purposes, as bell towers calling monks to prayer, as watchtowers providing early warning of approaching raiders, and as symbols of prestige and permanence. Their construction required extraordinary engineering skill, with each stone carefully shaped to create a perfect circle without mortar in the upper sections, allowing the structures to flex slightly in strong winds rather than topple. Among the most precious treasures of Clonmacnoise are its high crosses, masterpieces of medieval stone carving. The cross of the scriptures, standing 14 feet tall, is particularly remarkable. Carved from a single piece of sandstone in the 10th century, its panels depict scenes from the Bible and the monastery's history. These weren't merely decorative, they served as visual teaching tools in an age when few could read, allowing even the illiterate to understand the sacred stories. Walking through the ancient graveyard, you'll find tombstones spanning over 1,000 years of continuous burial, making it one of the longest-used cemeteries in Europe. Some of Ireland's greatest kings chose to be buried here, believing proximity to the saints would ease their path to heaven. Even today, local families with ancestral connections to the monastery may still be granted burial rights in this hallowed ground. In the small museum nearby, you can see the original high crosses, moved indoors for preservation, along with artifacts that offer glimpses into daily life at the monastery. One of the most fascinating items is a simple monk's sandal, preserved in a bog for centuries, reminding us that behind the grand historical narratives were ordinary people who walked these grounds. Did you know that Clonmacnoise was almost lost to history entirely? By the 16th century, following Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries, Clonmacnoise lay abandoned and forgotten. Local farmers carried away stones to build houses and barns, and treasure hunters dug through the grounds seeking rumored riches. It wasn't until the late 19th century that scholars and preservationists recognized the site's importance and began efforts to protect what remained. We owe our ability to visit these ruins today to their foresight. In 1995, Clonmacnoise received worldwide recognition when Pope John Paul II visited the site, celebrating its religious significance and drawing international attention to this remarkable place. Today, the Office of Public Works in Ireland carefully manages the site, balancing the needs of preservation with accessibility for the thousands of visitors who come each year. Though not yet officially designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Clonmacnoise has been on Ireland's tentative list since 2010, with ongoing efforts to secure this prestigious recognition. The site certainly meets the criteria, representing an outstanding example of human creative genius and an important interchange of human values over time. What makes Clonmacnoise truly special, however, is not just its historical significance, but the profound sense of connection it creates. Standing where countless pilgrims have stood before, touching stones that have witnessed the passing of empires, many visitors report a deep emotional response, a feeling that the veil between past and present grows thin in this ancient place. Modern pilgrims still come to Clonmacnoise, though they now arrive by tour bus rather than on foot. Some come seeking spiritual renewal, others historical understanding, and many simply for the peaceful beauty of this riverside sanctuary. But regardless of their motivation, Most leave with something unexpected, a profound appreciation for those who came before us and the legacies they left behind. Like all ancient places that have witnessed centuries of human drama, Clonmacnoise isn't just wrapped in history, it's shrouded in mystery and magic. The stones here don't just tell factual stories, they whisper legends that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. Among the most beloved tales is that of St. Ciarán's continued presence at the monastery long after his death. Monks throughout the centuries reported dreams in which the founder appeared to them during times of great peril. In the year 834, as Viking ships were spotted approaching on the Shannon, the abbot claimed St. Ciarán appeared to him in a dream the night before, warning of the impending attack and showing him where to hide the monastery's most precious relics. When the monastery was rebuilt after a devastating fire in 1016, workers reported seeing a young monk directing their efforts, pointing out where stones should be placed. A monk matching the description of Ciarán, who had died nearly 5 centuries earlier. These visitations became so commonly reported that in difficult times, monks would spend nights keeping vigil at St. Ciarán's grave, hoping to receive guidance through their dreams. Many claimed they did. Whether these experiences were divine intervention, the power of suggestion, or simply a community drawing strength from their shared belief, these accounts added a mystical dimension to the monastery's long history. The Shannon River itself features prominently in Clonmacnoise legends. One persistent tale speaks of a magnificent golden chalice encrusted with precious gems that was thrown into the deepest part of the river during a raid in the 11th century. According to the legend, the chalice was not merely valuable for its materials. It was said to have been used by Christ himself at the Last Supper, brought to Ireland by an unnamed disciple. Many treasure hunters have searched for this holy relic over the centuries, but local folklore warns that water spirits guard the chalice, creating dangerous whirlpools to protect it from human greed. Local storytellers still speak of strange lights seen hovering over the waters near Clonmacnoise on moonless nights, said to be the spirits of monks who died protecting their beloved monastery, still keeping eternal watch. Fishermen on the Shannon report that near the ancient ford by the monastery, their boats sometimes seem to be gently guided away from hidden obstacles by unseen hands. One of the most intriguing legends concerns the Whispering Arch, a section of ruined doorway where, if you stand in just the right spot and speak softly, your words can be heard clearly at St. Ciarán's grave some 30 feet away. Skeptics explain this as a simple acoustic phenomenon, but for centuries, pilgrims have believed this to be a direct line of communication to the saint himself. Did you know that well into the 19th century, local farmers would bring their sick children to sleep one night within the ruins? They believed that the protective presence of the saints would drive away illness. Even more fascinating, medical records from the time show several documented cases of seemingly miraculous recoveries following these overnight stays. Was this the power of faith, the benefit of a night away from unsanitary living conditions, or something more mysterious? The question remains unanswered. Perhaps the most chilling legend is that of the cursed stone. According to local lore, during the construction of one of the churches, a mason became jealous of a more talented colleague and murdered him, hiding the body within a wall. Before dying, the victim placed a curse on a specific stone in the building, saying that anyone who touched it 3 times would die before the year's end. To this day, tour guides point out a weathered stone with an unusual reddish tint, and many visitors purposely avoid touching it just to be safe. The bells of Clonmacnoise present another enduring mystery. The monastery's original bells were said to have been cast with gold and silver mixed into the bronze, giving them an otherworldly tone that could be heard for miles. When Vikings stole these bells in 943, legend holds that their ship immediately sank in the Shannon. For centuries afterwards, locals claimed that on Easter mornings, the phantom sound of these bells could be heard rising from beneath the water. These stories remind us that Clonmacnoise isn't just an archaeological site. It's a place where history and mythology intertwine, where the veil between worlds seems a little thinner. Whether you believe these tales or not, they add rich layers of meaning to this ancient place, connecting us not just to historical facts, but to the hopes, fears, and dreams of those who walked these grounds before us. As our journey through the history of Clonmacnoise comes to a close, I hope you can see that these ancient stones represent far more than just crumbling ruins. Standing here on the banks of the Shannon, where countless souls have stood before us across 15 centuries, we find ourselves touching something that transcends time itself. Clonmacnoise embodies the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. Think about it. Through Viking raids, Norman invasions, local warfare, religious persecution, and the simple ravages of time, this sacred place has endured. When buildings were burned, the monks rebuilt them. When precious manuscripts were destroyed, they created new ones. When lives were lost, others stepped forward to continue the work. There's a powerful lesson here for all of us facing our own modern challenges. This abbey also stands as a monument to the power of knowledge and learning. During Europe's darkest hours, when ancient wisdom was being lost across the continent, the monks of Clonmacnoise kept the flame of learning alive. They didn't just preserve knowledge, they celebrated it, expanded it, and shared it with anyone willing to make the journey to their doors. In doing so, they helped lay the groundwork for the eventual rebirth of European scholarship. Perhaps most movingly, Clonmacnoise reminds us that faith, whether religious faith or simply faith in human potential, can inspire achievements that outlast their creators by millennia. St. Ciarán died just months after founding this monastery, yet his vision continued to inspire generation after generation. The high crosses, round towers, and illuminated manuscripts all reflect the belief that creating something beautiful and meaningful is worth dedicating one's life to, even if the full flowering of that work might not be seen in one's lifetime. As we stand now in our own moment in history, facing uncertainties and challenges of our own, what wisdom might we draw from Clonmacnoise? Perhaps it's the reminder that the truly meaningful things we build, knowledge, beauty, community, faith, have the power to outlast whatever storms may come. Perhaps it's the understanding that our actions today might bear fruit for generations yet unborn. Or maybe it's simply the humbling recognition that we are all part of a human story, much larger than ourselves. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What lessons do you think we can learn from places like Clonmacnoise? What aspects of this remarkable site resonated most with you? The resilient monks rebuilding after each disaster, the scribes painstakingly preserving knowledge through the darkest times, or perhaps the simple beauty of this sacred place that still draws visitors 15 centuries after its founding. Before we part ways, I want to thank you for joining me on this exploration of one of Ireland's most remarkable treasures. If you enjoyed this journey into medieval history, please take a moment to like this video and share it with friends who might appreciate this extraordinary story. And if you're passionate about uncovering more hidden gems from the medieval world, subscribe to the Medieval Archives channel and hit the notification bell. Each week, we'll travel together to remarkable places where history comes alive, from forgotten monasteries to mighty castles, from Viking settlements to medieval universities. Until then, remember the words often attributed to the monks of Clonmacnoise: in the darkest times, be the one who keeps the light burning. See you on our next historical adventure.